Okay, so today we can talk about the traffic pattern. So first, what is the traffic pattern? It is a standardized way that aircraft can enter the vicinity of the runway to make a landing. It's used heavily, obviously, by VFR traffic that will, enter a standard pattern and land, and it's predictable. So even if there's not a tower, you can you can know what other people are doing when they're like if somebody says Seneca on base, you can know exactly where they are in relation to the runway. You don't need traffic patterns are less common with airlines and commercial operations because they fly IFR frequently, and even at towered airports, you'll often be given instructions to either enter the base or like enter just long final for whatever runway you're landing on. But we should still cover them here. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do, so let's talk about, so you have two patterns of traffic pattern, if that makes sense. So you have left hand and right hand. So the standard, if it's not published, if it's not on Tower Airport and it's not published anywhere, so you'll be flying left turned. So you always want to enter the traffic pattern at a 45 degree in what's called the downwind. So the downwind is where you're basically running opposite to the runway that you're landing. So if you're doing left turns, you would look out the left window, which is where you're sitting, and you'd see the runway kind of passing you by. When you're abeam of the numbers, you will then make your adjustments, configuration for landing. So what does that consist of? You're going to pull the throttle back. You're going to uh, put out your first notch of flaps, and you're going to start, pitching for the right airspeeds. Then you'll make, your left turn to base. When will you do that? When the number, like the landing point of the runway, either numbers or markers, are like at a 45-degree angle behind you. So you can already see why this is getting pretty hard in a simulator. And I know I've said before, I don't like VR because the ability to touch controls and twist things and manipulate physical objects is what makes it really real. I mean, especially like having physical things to interact with. Just that makes you so proficient at doing it in real life. This is one case where VR would be helpful because you can just literally look over your shoulder like you would in real life. But there's ways around it, and we'll talk about some of them. So once the numbers are 45 degrees behind you, you'll make your turn in what's called base. So base is getting set up kind of for your last turn before landing. So when like keeping an eye on the runway, judging when to turn, you'll then make your turn to what's called final, and there you'll make your landing or your go around. From there, you will, if you do a touch and go, you wheels touch, flaps up, go. You then take off and what's called upwind if you'd like to make that call. And then if you're going to leave the pattern, there are three ways to do it: either straight out at a 45 degree or in the direction of kind of the crosswind. These two are really the ways to do it, either straight out or at the 45. So how do you communicate this? So now you can see if the tower tells you enter left base for runway whatever, and sometimes they'll say right base. So if it is left traffic, but you're coming from this way and it's tower, they might say right base for a runway 9 or whatever. So you'll make the right base, but now you know what a base is, and crosswind, all that stuff. And then what are you going to do if you're at an untowered airport just practicing by yourself? Well, you're going to say Skyhawk whatever is downwind runway 8 or whatever. Then you'll turn, and you'll say, whatever traffic you're taught, like Cedar Key traffic, Skyhawk, whatever, base, runway 8. And then you'll say, Cedar Key traffic, Skyhawk, whatever, final, runway 8, Cedar Key traffic. So start and end your calls with whatever traffic you're talking to. And then, do it that way. Okay, so that's a traffic pattern, and then it can be right hand too. This is very common if there's parallel runways. So how do you know? Well, go to Sky Vector, and the Sky Vector has all the charts for everything. It has all the ATIS information, it has all the frequencies, it has all the instrument approaches. When you get more advanced, it even has like the departures and the arrival procedures and the SIDS and stars. But at a basic level, it has the airport diagram, which you want to have on you, and it has the chart supplement. So let's open the chart supplement. So for Key West, let's see what it has to say. So yeah, we know. So runway 9, we've probably seen the threshold is displaced, which is what this squiggly symbol means, and what those arrows mean leading up to it. And we know there's a PAPI, so a PAPI again is those 4 lights. We're looking for 2 of them to be white. That means we're on the glide slope. If they're all red, we're too low. If they're all white, we're too high. Versus a VASI, which is the 2 sets of lights, like one light, one light, one light, one light, and they're same kind of concept where they'll be white over red. You're doing well. If they're all red, then you're too low. If they're all white, you're too high. Then we can look at the remarks here. Or no, so yeah, back up here. So look what it says under runway 9. So yes, threshold displaced about 300 feet, and then it also says right traffic. So on runway 9, we will be expecting right traffic. Runway left doesn't say anything, or runway 27 doesn't say anything, but remember the default is left traffic. So as we're coming out of runway 9, we'll be making right turns. Then how high do you fly this is another good question. So 1,000 feet is the standard if it's not published, but it will also usually say here. So we just have to look through the remarks here, and we'll try to find reference to an altitude. Otherwise, we'll assume it's 1,000 feet. So far, theory balloon. Yeah, that's that balloon that's in Boca Chica area, engine run up. So let's even tell you where the engine run ups are, tell you where it's not visible from tower, do all this kind of stuff. Enter airport traffic area below 2,000 feet. Okay, so we're going to fly this at 1,000 feet. And that's because it's not otherwise published. Let me see. This is the only one on this page probably, but other airports might actually specify. Let me see if there's anything nearby. It's like Naples, for example. Let's see if we can find just an example of a published altitude. So yeah, just reading through here. Yep, so 1,000 will be the 800 to 1,000 feet will be the assumption then. And see here again, runway 5 here is right traffic. So now you kind of know what this right traffic means. And then it will also say it on these VFR charts. So wait, let's actually go back to Key West. So even if we didn't have the chart supplement on us, how would we know? Well, so Key West International, RP9, that means right pattern on runway 9. And this also gives us our control tower frequency or ATIS frequency. Tells us how far above sea level it is. So, not much. And it tells us lighting limitations exist. You'll have to look that in the supplement. Longest runway here is 5,100 feet. And that would be the CTAF frequency in this area, so the common advisory frequency. And we are doing right pattern on runway 9. Okay. So we'll be doing it this way. So we'll take off and then we'll make a right pattern over the ocean, which kind of makes sense there. So let's quickly get everything started. review some of the things we did. And there's one other thing I want to talk about: slips and skids last time. I kind of brushed over that quickly, but basically what it comes down to is you can think of like a skidding turn when you're applying too much rudder, like trying to compensate, trying to make it turn faster. You kind of throw the tail out, and a slipping turn is pretty much when you're not applying enough rudder, and it's kind of the aircraft's kind of turning. So the aircraft's kind of turning like that's an exaggeration, but it's almost turning like this. So a good turn is like this. A skidding turn is like this, where the tail, you're throwing the tail out, and it's not coordinated, and it's very dangerous, especially in traffic pattern. And a slip is almost like where it's turning like this. Okay, so review from last time. Get your checklists out, and let's get this thing fired up here and try a little bit of the traffic pattern. So first thing we always do, turn the beacon light on, make sure the avionics are off. We're going to turn the master on, alternator on. Of course, we're getting warnings because nothing's active. I'm going to open the throttle 1/4 of an inch. We're going to be ready to advance the mixture as we start it. We're going to put our key in, remember. Make sure we have the right key. It's good to me. Okay. Make sure this is running. Okay. Then we will look left, look right, yell clear, and then we will crank. And okay. So sometimes you get a flooded engine, and again, this is just a reality expansion pack thing. So if it tells you how to fix it, but so in general, what you do is you advance the throttle quite a bit. So a flooded engine just means now you have too much fuel in there, so you're maybe too aggressive with the mixture advancement. So we'll just advance the throttle quite a bit. We'll crank it, and then when it starts up, we'll add fuel, pull out the throttle, kind of get back to 1,000 RPMs in the throttle, and we'll reduce the mixture out. And then that looks good. We'll look at our gauges. Everything looks green here. Everything's in the green. And then what we're going to do is, So again, we haven't talked about it, but that's how you turn it. So to land and turn off the plane, I'm trying to go in order. It's by the mixture that you do it, and you let the propeller stop spinning, and then you turn the keys off. But I'm just gonna go to this thing, which is kind of nice about the reality expansion pack. We've been doing this without filling it up, so we're gonna fill it up. You notice the nose came up, so that's a weight and balance thing. We can talk about that later. And then now again, 1/4 inch crank, advance. And there we go. Okay, look for 1,000. Lean this out. And then we're going to alternators on there, we turn the avionics on, and then everything's fired up and ready to go. So remember, grab our ATIS, write it down. Just going to clear this real quick. Altimeter 3001. Arriving runway 09. Departing runway 09. Advise on initial contact at November. Okay, so we have November. So again, we would say Skyhawk. This also is fine to leave unarmed, by the way. This is just the standby battery. That's like a pre-checklist item. So that's enough of that. Then we can say, okay, we can say, remember who, what, where, and why. Skyhawk 172 Sierra Papa at the south ramp, India. That's looking for closed traffic, pretty much, you can say. Okay, and then they'll say, 72 Sierra Papa, taxi runway 9er via Alpha Bravo, and then make right traffic. So now we can taxi over there, and then while we're, this is kind of a long taxi over there, we can talk about some other things. So, like speeds in the pattern. So we'll fly the pattern just at the top of VFE speed, which is the top of the white ribbon, where the flaps can be extended, so we can easily deploy the flaps without being worried about hurting anything. And then that will be about 100 knots. And then let's lose 10 knots in every phase of the traffic pattern. So so as soon as we get a beam our numbers or landing spot, we're going to dial in or 100. Base we can so we'll be going at 100, then get a beam of our numbers or landing point. We can dial in for 90. Then on base we can dial in for 80. Then on final we can dial in for 70, and then we can cross the numbers in the Skyhawk in 65 knots. So in real life we always want to kind of take the whole runway, but it's really not necessary. So in the simulate, because the engine's not going to fail. The alternator might fail because I had to fart around with that. Because sometimes these buttons get out of sync, but that's okay. So we'll get over here. Let's make sure we're all set for takeoff as far as trim. So we'll do it at Charlie. Pretend they gave us a runway 9er at Charlie. Same kind of thing. We'll pull up over here. We'll maintain a view of the runway. Brakes. So then we'll do a run up again. Remember, mixture rich. Throttle slowly to 1700 RPM. And once we're there, or 1800 RPM. So once we're here, right magneto, both, left, both. So they both dropped about 60, and they were similar on both sides. Okay. All the gauges are in the green. Vacuum's good. Mixture's rich. Now we can check idle. And we can start introducing short field, soft field kind of takeoffs and landings. But let's get through just normally doing it first. And and for real purposes, landing in a simulator is nothing like real life. You have so many other stimuli, like tactile feedback, force feedback, peripheral vision. There's so many things that aren't present here, but I know a lot of people like it, and it can be done. Again, these weird views, I don't know if I'll do it well, but you can laugh at me other way. So now we would say 1720 Sierra Papa, ready for departure at runway 9er Charlie, and they will say clear for takeoff, runway 9er at Charlie, close traffic, make right close traffic, and then we'll say right close traffic, clear for takeoff at runway 9er, 172 Sierra Papa. So we'll do lights, remember, landing, taxi, strobe, nav light comes on, sunset to sunrise. Flaps are all up. We confirmed our trim set. So lights, camera, action. Action is mixture full rich. Final is clear. And then we'll do this for right close traffic. So I'm also going to say in advance, I did this cheat where I programmed this other view to look to the side, so that might help us. And then I'm also going to cheat by using this, the MFD, the multifunction display, to tell us where we are. So remember, we're going to say takeoff gauge is green, airspeed's alive. Let's bug our altitude, which we said was 1000. And takeoff means apply full power. Gauge is green, make one more look, make sure everything is in the green, and then airspeed's alive when the ribbon starts indicating airspeed, and then we'll rotate at 55 and climb out at 74. At 500 feet and past the runway, so here we go. We'll make our what is called crosswind turn. So take off. Gauges are all green, looking up there. Airspeed's coming alive. Here's 55. Can apply a little bit of back pressure. Yeah, don't expect it to come off. That bugger runway, I forgot to do that here. Okay. That climb can climb a little bit more aggressive than that. Hand on the throttle the whole time. Yeah, just for, so this isn't a total disaster. Kind of have to see. So yeah, there's our 74. Good climb. Good climb. So, you know what makes things climb, you know, less good, you know, other times. So here's our 500. Past the end of the runway, so we can make our crosswind turn. So, you know, and in the traffic pattern, up to 30 degrees is okay. But again, just don't get uncoordinated. So if we would apply too much right rudder, that would be a skidding kind of scenario, and that's how you spin. And we can talk about spinning more later, of course. Okay, now we can kind of turn downwind. So let's look. Okay, can't see, so that's another great thing about high wings. You can't always see exactly what you're doing. So we're coming up on our altitude here. There's our runway down there. We can square out a little bit and we can pull the RPMs back and trim. So yep, square it up here. And how far out do you want to be? About a mile or about 2/3 of the way up the S strut. So we're okay there. We're just not very aligned, but getting a kind of a better feel for this view. So now we're looking over there. There's our touchdown point. See, the numbers are right there. So now we're going to pull down to like 1500 RPM. You'll find will work fairly well in this plane. We will add our first notch of flaps. And then we will be looking for, so that's about 45 degrees. So now we will turn. And then remember, we're looking for 90 there. Now we're looking for kind of 80 on base. So remember, your descent rate, this is a really good big descent rate. So we're going to control our descent rate with power. We're going to control our airspeed with pitch. So a lot of instructors say the elevator doesn't elevate. So again, we're looking over here for a runway. And then, so base is where you would add the second notch of flaps when we were low. It's also a good habit to avoid flaps when you're doing something like making turns. Okay, but again, just getting the feel for it is okay. Now we can look for 70, and there is our, so that's actually a VASI that they have in the simulator at least. So one red, one white, we're okay, we're all right. So again, if they were both red, we would be too low. If they were both white, we would be too high. So this is actually looking okay. So now, once the landing is assured, like pavement is assured, you can add the last notch of flaps. You will notice that expedites your slowing down to 65. So now, yeah, don't let it, so this, don't drag it in. It's kind of what's going on here. We're looking for a little faster than this. And once we get about like 20 feet off the runway, going to take out the power. We're going to level off, and then we're just going to hold the nose off for as long as we can. Okay. And then we'll do a touch and go here, but I just want to see how that turned out, so we can kind of review what was good and bad about it, so that you can add this to your own landings. Okay. So we're coming down here. We're kind of it's called dragging in when you're a little slow and have to add more power on final. That's not good. See, we kind of level out as it slows down, and we hold the nose off for as long as we can, and then touches down on the mains and then on the nose wheel. So the most important thing with landing is that you land on the mains and not the nose wheel. So this is called the roundout, and then the flare is when you pull the nose up and it touches down on the mains first. So one more time. See, we're still in a pitch down attitude. Then we cross the threshold, we round out, so we hold it straight and level, and then it starts sinking, pull the nose up, touch the mains, then the nose. And then we can kind of resume our flying here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to pull the flaps all the way up. Then we're going to take off again. So stay on the center line. That kind of got away from me. 55. Rotate. And then we're looking for a 74. So again, I can't really see out the window, so I use the MFD inappropriately to kind of help guide me. So we remember now we're looking for 500 feet AGL, which we're pretty much at sea level, so 500 feet. MSL, don't get slow on the climb out. And then being past the airport structure. 500 feet, we're well past the airport, and then we can do up to a 30-degree turn to a crosswind. Climbing all the way up to all the way up to 1,000 feet, so the traffic pattern altitude. Don't take your hand off the throttle. Then we can kind of turn downwind now, right? So airspeed is everything here. So I've been kind of sloppy on this climb out. But remember, so how do you control airspeed? It's nothing more than the elevator. So pitch is what's controlling airspeed. So if we're too fast, so here we are at our altitudes. Now we're going to pull the power. Look, see how we are. That's good. Pretty much paralleling it now. We're going to hold this one. So yeah, it's like 2300 RPM or so is good. I want to be like 95 to 100. Then we're looking at our runway. So I programmed a view out the side to look at the runway. You can do that too. And then trim, whatever way you have to trim, whether it's on the yoke or a physical wheel like this. And now what we're doing, so there's our point. So first thing, remember, pull the power down to like 1500 RPM or so. First notch of flaps. So the Skyhawk, you can be going like 110 and still do the first notch of flaps. Remember, looking for like 90 or so. So maybe 1700 is better. You'll just have to play with it yourself. And then remember when we turn, when we're 45. That looks well 45. Yeah, we're getting the southernmost. So we're going to make this turn. And then, base, we're looking for a good 80. Sorry, couldn't see much there probably. So we're looking for 80 base. And then if we're stable, we can add more drag. So more flaps and then trim accordingly. So maybe 1700 is better on this particular Skyhawk. Keep it on your runway. There it is. And watch your descent rates. Remember how you control descent rate is through only a power. Now we're turning to the runway, doing whatever we need to do with power, stop the descent. So there's one red over white. So red over white, you're all right. Now we're going to have to bring this up a little bit. See again. So now we're coming in and we're looking for 70 right there. So we're on airspeed. Trim. Don't fight. Don't fight the yoke. Trim. Do whatever you got to do. Power. It's always better to take away than to add, but you'll get a feel for it. But just the flaps create drag. So just always keep that in mind. Mixture's rich. Okay. Once landing on pavement, like making pavement is assured, then we can add the last notch of flaps and slow down to 65. So things like that anticipate that by adding that last notch of flaps, it's gonna want to pitch up on you, and it's also gonna want to slow down. So that's what I think the simulator does have value in predicting patterns. So we're looking for 65 across the numbers, slowly pulling out the power, pulling it out the power. So there we go, crossing it now. We're at like 20 feet, so we're going to round out. We're going to cut the power all the way, hold it off, and then nose comes down. Okay, we can watch that and critique, and then I'm going to try one more thing. I'm going to demonstrate some pitfalls. So same thing, yep, hold it off, yep, mains touch down, nose wheel touches down. We had a little bit of ballooning that time, but so ballooning is when, so you go to flare, you have too much energy, and you kind of stay up, but what did I do? I left the power in, and I took it out later, and we still landed on the mains and the nose wheel. So now I'm going to demonstrate some bad things real quick. So again, don't forget to take the flaps up. It's very dangerous. And then we're going to say take off. Now 2 to 3 seconds again for full power. Gauges are all green. Airspeed's alive. What are we looking for? 55. And we pull up, and then we're looking for a 74. So the first thing I'm going to demonstrate is how you get yourself into a spin. So a spin is when you're skidding the turn into you're skidding the turn into final. And why would you do that? I'll show you. So here we are climbing. We're better airspeed control this time. Okay, if close enough, we can turn. Remember, 30 degrees, no more. No more. Don't get slow and low. There are two things you want to avoid in the traffic pattern. Okay, so here's that. And we're still climbing to 1,000. And we're going to turn here. How do we know when to turn? Well, you should look. But if you have to cheat and use the MFD or something. But we're still looking for 74, so we're up there. We have 100 feet to go. Let's look over. Yeah, that's good. Okay, now we're at 1,000 feet. You can nose it over, pull back down to like 2,300 RPM. And remember, a lot of this is trial and error depending on the heat. If you have realistic engine modeling like this reality expansion pack and X-Plane is, it's going to account for the heat. It's going to give you poorer performances when the weather's hotter. So you're going to have to know to pull out you leave a little more power in. So there we are. There's our beam point. So now we're going to pull the power out, and then I'm going to show you some pitfalls here. So we set it like kind of 1,700. So that's fine. You can add the flaps there. We're looking for like 90. So trim is necessary. Never fight it. Then what are we looking for? The 45-degree point. And it looks like it's well behind us. So now we're going to turn. We've been on 90, which is good for now. Now through this turn, we're looking to kind of slow to 80 for base. I'm going to show you where some people get in trouble, and it's easy to do simulator. So another thing you can do is use a heading bug. When the heading bug is 90 as long as there's no wind. So 90, we can slow down to there, and then there's our runway. And what I'm going to intentionally do is wait a little bit. I'm going to turn now, which might be too late. Oh no, we're fine. Okay, well, so if you accidentally blow by the runway, and then you go to make a turn, so like now, the temptation is to throw the rudder out. But what that will do is introduce a spin, and that is not recoverable from this altitude. We can show a spin in a second, and then I'm just going to demonstrate one other. So slams are not good, obviously, like landing with high rates of descent. But also there's porpoising, which is landing on the nose wheel. So it's all about you're on the glide slope now. You're at 70. How do you make yourself slow down a little bit? Well, pitch up. Pitching up is going to cost you. If it's going to make you too high, then just simply pull out some of the power. So here we are at 65. So this one's set up too well. We'll just land normally kind of here. And then again, we'll kind of level it out. Okay. Then let's see how that went. That might have been flat, actually. So yeah, just like that is what we're looking for. So yeah, just don't rush it. So when level out, hold it, and then start pulling back, and then I'll touch real nicely there. Okay, let's put up the flaps. I'm just going to demonstrate what a spin looks like from a higher altitude. Actually, I'm going to leave some of the flaps down, and we're going to do kind of more of a short field takeoff just to demonstrate. So short field takeoffs are going to get us high in the shortest amount of distance. So let's just get up, then we'll demonstrate a spin real quick from like a safer altitude. So I hope that made sense about the traffic pattern. Program your keys maybe so you can have a way to look and know what you're doing and like know where all the points are. And then just it's all about airspeed. If you're coming in too fast, it's gonna float. If you're coming in too slow, it's gonna slam on the ground. So this is what we're talking about where if you want to exit a traffic pattern, you do it on like the 45. So now we're going to exit 45 out of it. We're going to keep climbing a little bit higher. And then we're going to see a spin. So, it's like I was saying, it's all about airspeed. If you're sinking too fast in the pattern, don't pull up, add a little bit of power, and use the pitch to control your airspeed. So if you're going too fast, pull up a little bit. That will slow you down. If you're going too slow, pitch nose down, and if that makes you sink too quickly, then add some power. Okay, now that we're kind of up here, let's add some flaps again. Like 2 notches that would kind of simulate what you would be doing in the in the traffic pattern. And then let's like make a right turn, but pretend we blew by the runway and we need to do whatever we can to speed up the right turn. So we're already kind of going slow because we're in the traffic pattern. Pretend. So let's kind of get to a better traffic pattern speed. So yeah, something like 70. Like we're about to turn final, and then so we're going to turn. And we're going to add way too much right rudder to get us over there. And then what that's going to do, okay, these are hard to stall. I mean, it's that in the simulator you can't always predict. So the best way to create a spin is to just be uncoordinated with your. So let's bias some altitude real quick because I think it's kind of important to see what this is like. So let's get us up to 4,000 maybe. Okay. Now we'll put all the flaps out, pull the power, and we're going to do an uncoordinated stall. So this is why it's so important to be watching the horizon. So here's a spin. How do you break it? Rudder against it, nose down, unload it, and then you'll come out of it. So it's called tear. So throttle to idle, ailerons neutral, rudder against the spin, and then elevator down. So we can watch that, and that's the same kind of concept that would really happen if you were. But just imagine this happening now on final. So here, notice it's flying crooked. And so what happens is one wing stalls before the other wing. And then it enters the spin because the one wing is still somewhat flying. So like we said, we just take out the power, even the ailerons, and fight it with rudder. So that looks a lot more dramatic from the inside, doesn't it? But so again, outside, one wing is stalling and one wing is still flying. So it just creates this mess here, which is called a spin, and it looks very scary and it's very disorienting. So avoid skidding on final. So I hope that was helpful. Again, questions, requests, anything, leave them in the comments. Clear skies.